A layered architecture, also known as N-tier architecture, is a software design pattern used to organize applications into distinct layers or tiers. Each layer has a specific role, and communication between layers is well defined and hierarchical. This design approach promotes modularity, scalability, maintainability, and separation of concerns in software. A typical N-tier architecture consists of the following layers: a presentation layer or user interface layer. This topmost layer interacts with users, presenting data in a user-friendly format. It handles user input, displays information, and forwards requests to lower layers. Examples include web browsers, mobile apps, and desktop interfaces. Next up is the application layer, or business logic layer. An application layer contains the core business logic. It processes requests from the presentation layer, performs business rules, calculations, and manages data flow. Note that it does not handle data storage or retrieval. Next up, we have the domain layer, or data model layer. The domain layer represents the core entities and business objects of the application. It encapsulates business logic independently of data storage technology, defining the fundamental rules of the application's domain. And lastly, we have the data access layer, or persistence layer. The data access layer handles data storage and retrieval operations. It interacts with databases, file systems, or external services to save and fetch data, shielding the rest of the application from data storage details. Note that N-tier architecture can also be extended with additional layers, such as caching or messaging layers, based on specific application needs. Some benefits of an N-tier architecture include maintainability. The separation of concerns in different layers simplifies application maintenance and updates without affecting other parts. Reusability. The modular nature allows component reuse across multiple projects. And lastly, security. Clearly defined layer communication enhances security by restricting direct access to sensitive data and functionality. In Nest.js, the three-layered architecture is the default architecture that is generated when you generate a new Nest.js resource. We also call this the traditional architecture, as it is the most common architecture used in Nest.js applications. It is also the architecture that we have been using in previous lessons and course extensions, as that's essentially what Nest.js documentation and examples use. The three layers are the controllers layer, which handles incoming requests and returns responses to the client, the services layer, which consists of the business logic of the application, and the data access or persistence layer, which handles data storage and retrieval. If we switch over to our IDE, we can see that our application is already structured in this exact way. We have a controller and a service, but we don't have a data access layer since the Nest.g resource schematic doesn't generate one for us. We would usually fill this gap with a TypeORM module or a Prisma module, or really any other module that handles data storage and retrieval for us. The three-tier architecture works really well for medium to large-scale applications that require a clear separation of concerns, modularity, and scalability. It is a good choice when the focus is on organizing the application into layers with defined responsibilities. When your team prioritizes a more decoupled and domain-centric design, you may want to consider a different architecture, such as the onion or hexagonal architectural patterns. These architectures are well suited for complex domain modeling and domain-driven design, allowing the application to evolve independently of external factors. Don't worry, we'll be diving into both of these architectures in the following lessons.